Hey everyone, welcome to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. My name is Jasminne Paulino. I'm so excited to be here with Ivelisse Houseman, and we're going to be talking about how a character's wants moves the plot forward. So, Ivelisse, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And is there a memory that you have from when you were younger where there's a special interest that you may have had?
Hi, I'm Ivelisse Houseman. I'm the author of the Unseelie duology, Unseelie, and the sequel Unending, which comes out this month, September 23rd. Um, I have been writing since before I could actually write and hold a pencil. My dad loves to tell the story of how I used to, when I was really little, tell stories out loud and make him write them down and draw pictures for them. Because I've just been reading and I've been in love with storytelling for as long as I can remember. When I got older, in my English classes, I would always be writing stories, or when I finished my work early, I would be writing or reading. And it was always something that just felt um, it just felt like so natural for me to be telling stories and coming up with characters and plots. And I forgot for a long time that writing was actually a job that people can have. When I got to high school and started college, I was just looking for what's going to be my thing. I kind of in the back of my mind thought, oh, well, I'll just write books like on the side of something. But eventually I found my way back to it and I started writing seriously. And I think that all of those years of practice from when I was a little kid and the fact that I just felt like this is what I was meant to do all came back to me, and it worked out, and now I'm an author. So I am like following the dream that I've always had. And I will throw it off to Jasmine now.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ivelisse. Hi, I'm Jasminne Paulino. I am the author of The Extraordinary Orbit of Alex Ramirez. This is my debut novel. I love writing for kids. I always say that I live in a middle grade space in my brain, and Alex is definitely a testament of that. It's a love story for children who are neurodivergent, and my hope is that kids who read this book will find themselves advocating for what they believe to be true and close to their hearts. It's a story that I hold very close. An early memory from when I was younger, I loved writing. It was my thing. I didn't have a diary because having one in my household wouldn't have worked. My brother would have found it. He would have handed it over to my parents, and that would have been terrible. So my way around this was that I would often like rip pages from composition notebooks, spiral notebooks, and anything that I like wanted to say to my parents or a friend or a teacher. These were things that I'd write out, and then I'd fold up the piece of paper and hide them all over my room. Eventually, like my mom caught on to the like paper hiding thing, and my teachers started to talk about how I was into creative writing. And then my mom, who was smart, she decided to use this to her advantage and to mine. So, depending on how kind I was to my brother, which wasn't often the case, or how responsible I was at home, that would earn me trips to the stationery store. And that's how my collection of stationery and different pens and pencils started to grow. So, and then on our trips to the Dominican Republic, I could also, again, if I was kind to my brother while on vacation, which was challenging at times, I then earn a trip to La Papeleria, and then the stationery stores that I loved here in New York, that just like became that much more awesome in the Dominican Republic. There were like so many other options. So that was definitely a way for me to do what I needed to do. And the incentive was obviously getting more writer tools.
You needed one of those journals with like a lock on it.
They would, my brother would have like cracked it open, or he would have like my parents would have helped him if they had something
Aw,
like. So yeah, no, the diary was just not going to happen. But the
siblings.
desire to write, and then for whatever reason, I thought that if whatever I wrote, I then hid it and no one saw it, that if I had like a question that needed an answer or something that I was hoping would come true, that it would happen if no one saw it. But again, this is like child reasoning.
Yeah.
The question that we'll be tackling today again is, how does a character's wants move the plot forward? Some of the key vocabulary that we'll be looking at are characterization and plot.
So characterization is a word that has the main meaning of it right in there. It's about character. It's deciding things like, who is your character? What are they like? What are they good at or bad at? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are they afraid of? And you have to put all of these different things together to try and create someone who feels like they could be real even though they're not. And characterization is so important when you're writing, because what makes people want to keep reading is when they care about a character, when they like a character, or when they're interested in a character, even if they don't like who the person is. And characterization is also what makes something a story. Like, what makes it more than just like a bunch of events happening and makes it meaningful is how we see a character grow and change throughout a book or a story, which is what we describe as plot, which is on the next slide.
Thank you, Ivelisse. As far as plot is concerned, it's what the story is about and how things happen one after another. A plot usually has a beginning where we meet the characters and learn about their worlds, a middle where something exciting or important happens, a problem or an adventure, and the end, obviously, where the problem is solved or the story finishes. You can think of the plot as a roadmap that shows you where the story starts, what's happening along the way, and how it ends.
So my newest book is Unending, which I have here. It is the second book in this series, the last book in this series. And in Unending, the characters' wants, which are what we're talking about in the presentation, carry over from book one. But just to keep things simple, I'm going to focus on book one in the series, which is out now. So Unseelie and Unending together are fantasy books for young adults. And they're inspired by the theory that changeling mythology, which are stories about fairies replacing children with a fairy that looked like them, that was a way that people would describe autistic children before they had a word for autism or knew what that was. And so in the book, the main character, Seelie, is an autistic changeling. She has magic. She also has a lot of the struggles that I had as an autistic teenager growing up. So in the book, I use those two things together to represent what it feels like growing up in a world where you feel like an outsider. And in the book, she and her sister are just total opposites, and they are trying to figure out a way to go back to the home that they've left behind. And all that she wants is to find a place where she belongs, and she'll do anything it takes to get there, even if she knows that it is a really bad idea. In this sample, Seelie's characterization, going back to our vocab word, includes a lot of problems that are very common for autistic people. She has a lot of anxiety, and she has a fear of the unknown. And if there wasn't something that she wanted so bad that she's forced to overcome these problems, there would be no story. If it was up to Seelie, nothing would happen in this book. But because she doesn't have everything she wants, and she wants a home more than anything else, she has to make sacrifices and go through things that she is scared of and that are hard for her to make those things happen. So when I was writing, whenever I wasn't sure what happened next in the plot, I would ask myself, how do I make it harder for Celie to get what she wants, and what does she need to grow? So in this sample is a part of the book where she makes a really important decision. I've been mostly silent, trying to file all this information away, but now I speak. My voice is quiet, so I'm surprised when it makes everyone turn to look at me. You expect us to just go along with all this? Being hunted like prey wasn't part of the agreement. Ray's shrugs. He's starting to look like himself again, humor creeping back to the corners of his eyes. The agreement doesn't matter. You need this as much as we do. I want to say no. I want to say no so badly. There's still so much unexplained, and when we started this, no one said anything about running for our lives. I want to walk away and pretend none of this ever happened. Then I think of home again, of our parents, of plucking flowers from yarrow plants at my mother's side, of the warm earth smell of my father's studio, of golden afternoon light streaming in the cottage windows, of all four of our voices mingling in laughter as we swap stories. If this gets us killed, I manage, stumbling a little on the forced confidence in my voice, I expect double payment. So moving on to our activity. In that sample, I used the words I want or I don't want a lot. And I was trying to make it very clear that what Celie thinks she wants is not to go on an adventure, but what she wants even more than that is to go home and be with her parents again. And I tried to really focus on what it felt like for her to be home. So in this practice, you're going to brainstorm a want that a character might have and an obstacle that is specific to that character. So this is something that connects to their characterization. So Celie is anxious, so her obstacle is that she has to face the thing that stresses her out the most, which is working with other people. I've put it much more smoothly than that in this sentence. Celie wants to go home, but she must work with others to make that happen. So your sample can be an original idea that you're coming up with right now, or it can be something from a favorite book. And educators, you can pause here to give your students time to write out a sentence for this activity.
Thank you so much, Ivelisse. Again, the story that I wrote, The Extraordinary Orbit of Alex Ramirez, takes a look at a seventh grader who is in a self-contained classroom, which is a special education learning environment. And in it, some of the poems in the very beginning tell us a little bit about where Alex is at in his headspace. So I will be reading the facts, and it starts off on this note. The facts. SC means everything stays igualito. Same teacher, forever calling us friends like this is pre-K. Miss Lori's the only one who doesn't talk to me like a baby. Same classroom and friends. I know the other kids switch classes, see different faces. Who decided to keep my class in the same room for every subject? It's not like we can't hear the bell ring, the doors open, the voices roam, the steps, steps. And just from this poem and looking at the question, how does Alex feel about his SC class? He's aware of where the classroom that he's in, but is curious about what's going on outside of that classroom. In Miss Rose's Science Corner, some of the questions that we can consider are, what does Alex want? What's holding him back? And it starts off with, Miss Rose's Science Corner is a must stop for me and Chase. On the way to PE, we ask Miss Lori, like always, can we check Miss Rose's hallway setup? Of course, she says. Why, it's a must. Miss Rosef has posters of almost everything: the human body, astronomy, charts on scientific investigations. Last month, her students built models of viruses. When I asked Miss Sharon, why can't we do that? She said, our class is not ready. So there's that curiosity that he has about the mainstream seventh grade science class. And the thing, in at least at this point in the story, that he believes is holding him back is his teacher, Miss Sharon, believing that he's just not ready to take that step outside of the self-contained classroom. So for student practice, we're going to read some poems on the following slide and answer some questions. What inspires Alex? What are some of the challenges he might have on his journey? Who's the character in your story, the one that might be tickling your brain? What do they want more than anything? And as Ivelisse also shared, what obstacles will they have to overcome? So the first poem we'll look at is I Know I'm Not in High School. I know I'm not in high school, pero I heard high school students participate in countrywide science fairs. Our neighbor Haley designed a project for this. She even won an award, first place. A picture of her holding a trophy while so many faces smile, while so many hands cheer, is in a newsletter that went out to every family. Must be nice to have someone capture a moment that makes you feel proud. In the picture's caption, it says, Haley credits seventh grade teacher Miss Diane Rosef with opening her mind to scientific discovery, which makes me wonder, what could Miss Rosef help me discover? See the World literally comes up number 4 on NASA's list, top 10 reasons to become a 21st century astronaut. Is that the worksheet we're reviewing, Alex? We've discussed this. Miss Lori smiles. She points at my iPad. Let's put this away, focus. Hey, what's that? Jane stops at my desk. Relax, Emma calls out. It's just Alex obsessing over space facts. This group. Here's my question, though. How am I supposed to see myself as an astronaut, imagine myself exploring when my mornings are filled with Miss Sharon's math fluency worksheets? When my Monday through Friday, my 7:40 a.m. to 2:40 p.m. says, Alex, you can't do that. So, in just reading through these poems, and if we align them with the poem that I shared earlier, we can see again that curiosity about the seventh grade science class, and his interest in NASA is the driving force for him advocating for himself and trying to get his teachers and his parents later on in the story to just give him the room to explore spaces outside of that self-contained classroom. And it's the thing that he keeps revisiting until he's been given that chance. Again, educators, you can pause here for more time. So when we think about our essential question of how does a character's wants move the plot forward, because Alex believes that taking this mainstream, because Alex believes that being a part of the mainstream seventh grade science class will get him closer to his astronaut dreams, he's obsessed with watching NASA videos, rocket launches specifically with his papi, and he sees this opportunity to be in Miss Rosef's class as the thing that will get him closer to, again, achieving that NASA dream. So throughout the story, he will explore all the avenues that it will get him closer to a space of connection with science and all things NASA related.
So, to recap everything we've talked about today, young people have interests that are incredibly important. You already know this because you all have interests. You all have something that you're passionate about. And these interests are a lot of the times what pushes us through things that we're scared of and obstacles that are difficult for us to overcome. So our characters, when we're writing stories, also need to have these interests and these wants and these things that are important to them. Our favorite stories will always show characters wanting something. The best stories always show characters who are reaching for something and who are growing because of that. So that something should be something that they cannot live without. It's non-negotiable. And these are the things that take characters from just asking questions and looking at the world the way that it is to deciding that they're going to do something about it, and to the change in themselves and or maybe the world that they will experience by the end of the story.
As a final student practice, here's something to work on. You can write a 1 to 3 paragraph story about a time where you had to overcome an obstacle in order to get what you wanted. And educators, you can pause here for more time. Thank you so much for joining us, Ivelisse. Thank you for sharing your inspiration for your story and the wants of your character. And if you're interested in learning more about the extraordinary orbit of Alex Ramirez, about my journey as a writer, you're certainly welcome to follow me on Instagram. My handle is jasmine.notes. Ivelisse, where can we find you?
Thank you so much, Jasmine. I'm also on Instagram at Ivelisse Houseman. And thank you for joining us. For more craft resources, check out the rest of the craft workshops at this year's festival, as well as the mini craft lessons on the educator page of the festival website. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.